I'd bought with my own overtime pay. For the first time, I didn't feel the old, familiar knot of guilt in my stomach. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. 2 days later, the flying monkeys started. My Aunt Sarah called first. She's my mom's sister, the kind of person who thinks family is an obligation that overrides morality. "Leo, honey, I heard about the house," she began, her voice dripping with that manufactured sweetness. "It's devastating. Your mother is a wreck. She's staying in a motel because the smell of smoke is too much for her asthma." "That's unfortunate, Aunt Sarah," I said, leaning back in my office chair. "Maybe she should ask Chloe to help pay for a nicer hotel since Chloe's the one who turned the living room into a bonfire." "Now, don't be like that. Chloe is fragile. She's having a mental health crisis over this. She feels so guilty." "Guilty enough to get a job?" I asked. "Guilty enough to sell that car my parents bought her?" The line went quiet for a beat. "You've become so cold, Leo. We all noticed it after you moved out. You just detached." "I didn't detach, Sarah. I was detached. There's a difference." I hung up on her too. Then came the messages from Chloe. Not apologies, demands. She sent me a rambling text about how unfair it was that I was hoarding my wealth while our parents suffered. She actually used the word hoarding. "I have a modest savings account meant for a down payment on a house and an emergency fund because I know better than anyone that no one is coming to save me if my life catches fire. You think you're so much better than us because you have a fancy job," her text read, "but you're just a traitor. Mom is crying every night. Dad is talking about selling his car. Is that what you want? To see them on the street?" I didn't reply. Instead, I went through my old photos on my laptop. I found the one Coach Miller took of me the day I was discharged from the hospital. I looked like a ghost, pale, thin, hunched over from the pain in my abdomen. In the background, you could see his wife, who had brought me a homemade casserole because she knew my parents hadn't stocked my fridge. I scrolled further back. Graduation. Me standing alone in my gown because my parents were at Chloe's regional dance qualifiers 3 states away. They'd sent a text. "So proud. Celebrating with Chloe now. We'll do dinner when we get back. XO." We never did dinner. I realized then that my parents didn't want a son. They wanted an insurance policy. They had spent 20 years investing everything into the golden child, and now that the investment had literally gone up in flames, they expected the forgotten child to cover the loss. On Friday, my dad showed up at my office. I saw him through the glass partition of the lobby. He looked older, tired, his jacket smelling faintly of soot. My heart gave a tiny, traitorous tug, but I pushed it down. I walked out to meet him. "Leo," he said, reaching out to pat my shoulder. I stepped back just enough that he missed. He cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Can we talk? Just man to man? If this is about the loan, Dad, the answer is still no. It's not just the loan," he sighed, sitting on one of the lobby chairs. "The GoFundMe Chloe started, it only raised $400. People are being cruel. They're saying she's irresponsible. The neighbors are complaining about the soot. The city is threatening fines. Because she is irresponsible, Dad. And the neighbors are right. It's a residential street, not a nightclub. She was trying to build a career," he snapped, the old defensiveness returning. "She's an influencer, Leo. That's how the world works now. You have to have an image. You have to host events." "She's 27, I said flatly. "She doesn't have an image. She has a bedroom in a house she burned down. If I did what she did at 16, you would have grounded me until I was 30. You would have made me work 3 jobs to pay you back. Why is it different for her?" My dad looked at his shoes. "Because she's sensitive. You were always tough, Leo. You always figured things out. We never had to worry about you. You didn't have to worry about me because you chose not to," I said, my voice rising just enough to make a passing coworker glance over. "I wasn't tough. I was neglected. I figured it out because the alternative was starving or ending up on the street. You mistook my survival for strength so you could ignore me with a clear conscience." He stood